A long time ago, a powerful man named Vasher found himself in a Hallanderan prison. He was accustomed to such predicaments, often getting himself incarcerated as part of a larger plan. This time, he had deliberately instigated a bar fight, striking a priest of the iridescent tones, knowing it would land him in the God King's dungeons. His goal was to reach a particular prisoner. As the guards rifled through his possessions, one of them found his black-hilted, silver-sheathed sword, Nightblood. The air around the sword seemed to darken, and Vasher warned the guard of its danger. Ignoring him, the guards took the sword and left. Alone, Vasher quickly fashioned a small figure from straw and a piece of his eyebrow hair. With a whispered command and a portion of his biochromatic breath, he awakened the figure, instructing it to fetch keys. The straw person swiftly returned with a large rain, its feet stained red. Vasher recovered his breath, then awakened his cloak, commanding it to protect him. He always thanked his awakened creations, a strange habit considering his next actions. With the keys, he freed himself and ventured deeper into the dungeon, seeking a specific cell. He found it easily, marked by stone drained of color to prevent awakening. Inside, a man named Var hung chained and gagged, his body vibrant with hundreds of breaths. Vasher removed the gag. Var, a former rebel leader, recognized him. "Are you here to free me?" Var croaked. "No, Var," Vasher replied, his voice quiet. "I'm here to kill you." Var, resigned, understood. He had two choices: give his breaths to his torturers or to Vasher. He chose Vasher, willingly transferring his vast reservoir of breath. The world around Vasher exploded with vibrant color and heightened sensation. He had returned to the third heightening, capable of perceiving perfect hues and possessing perfect pitch. He then awakened a scarf, giving it the command to strangle Var, ending the man's suffering. Recovering his breath, Vasher left, passing the dead guards, and picked up Nightblood. The sword's mental voice filled his mind, boasting of the kills. Meanwhile, in the tranquil Idris Highlands, Princess Siri, the youngest of 4 royal children, relished her unimportance. She loved to escape into the wilderness, her golden hair reflecting her joy. Unlike her poised, perfect elder sister Vivenna, who was betrothed to the Hallanderan god Cain, Siri was free from rigid lessons and expectations. She enjoyed simple pleasures, sharing brightly colored flowers with children and working in the palace kitchens with Mab, the cook. Mab, however, often chided Siri for her disregard for tradition and her fascination with colors, which were shunned in Idris to prevent awakening. Siri, unperturbed, believed Ostre, the god of colors, intended for beauty to be appreciated. Unbeknownst to Siri, her father, King Dedalin, faced an agonizing decision. A pink Hallanderan letter lay on his desk, demanding Vivenna, his eldest, for marriage to the god Cain. General Yarda, his most trusted advisor, urged him to comply. War with Hallanderan was inevitable, but sending Vivenna would buy Idris precious time, perhaps months, until the winter snows could provide a natural defense. The treaty, negotiated after his father's assassination, had kept Hallanderan at bay for 20 years, but now Vivenna's 22nd birthday had arrived. Dedalin knew sending Vivenna meant sending her to her death, to be used as a political pawn, forced to bear a stillborn monster that would become the next returned god. A knock at the door revealed Vivenna herself, calm and composed in her modest gray dress. She had anticipated the letter and declared herself ready to depart, suggesting she leave before Siri returned to avoid a scene. But just then, Siri galloped into the courtyard, her unbound hair a vibrant yellow. Dedalin, in a surge of rage and frustration, felt his own hair bleed red. He made his choice, not Vivenna, whom he loved too much, but Siri. The treaty only specified, a daughter of the royal blood. Sending Siri would buy them time, and if Vivenna were to be used as a pawn, Dedalin knew he couldn't resist giving in. He wouldn't risk Vivenna, so he would send Siri in her place. Siri sat stunned in the rattling carriage, her homeland receding. Her hair bleached white with fear. She was being sent to marry the god Cain, a monster who had never drawn a living breath, in a kingdom her people reviled. This was Vivenna's destiny, not hers. She was unimportant, redundant. Yet here she was, doomed by a treaty written before her birth. She ordered her 20-soldier honor guard to return to Idris, a decision that left her feeling even more terrified but also a strange sense of empowerment. She would be alone in a city of lifeless, awakeners, and pagans. Meanwhile, Vivenna, with her sister Fafin, picked bruise-colored berries, a task for the monastery. Vivenna was frustrated. She had trained her entire life for the marriage, for the sacrifice. Now, her purpose was stolen, given to capricious Siri. Her father's logic that her political knowledge was more valuable to Idris if war came, offered little comfort. She felt useless, but as she thought of Siri, innocent and unprepared, an audacious idea began to form. She would go to Hallanderan herself. She would rescue her sister. In Telier, Siri was overwhelmed by the sheer ostentation. 40,000 lifeless soldiers, bright colors everywhere, a city so vast it numbed her mind. The Hallanderan troops, with their gray, lifeless skin and unblinking eyes, unnerved her. She had imagined skeletal creatures, not men so unnaturally still. She was going to marry one of these things, or returned. Yet, amidst the garishness, a smile crept onto her face. Perhaps her father had sent her because, unlike Vivenna, she was drawn to color. Maybe she could ease the tensions. Her carriage stopped at the God King's Black Palace, a stark pyramid in a city of color. The high priest, Treldes, informed her there would be no wedding ceremony. She was the God King's wife the moment he desired it. She shivered. Inside, she was stripped, bathed by silent servants, and measured for gowns. Bluefingers, the head scribe, explained that the God King did not speak and that she must never provoke his anger. Siri felt a growing terror, a raw rage at her helplessness. She was a pawn, to be used and discarded once she bore an heir. Lightsong, a returned god, languished in his opulent palace, plagued by nightmares of Telier burning. He didn't remember his past life, only what his priests told him. He had died displaying extreme bravery. He had thousands of breaths, a vibrant aura that intensified colors around him, but he couldn't use them to awaken. Each week, he received a breath from a sacrificed child, a price he abhorred but accepted to survive. He was a god who didn't believe in his own religion, often using sarcasm and wit to deflect from his discomfort. He reluctantly performed his duties, reviewing art offerings and hearing petitions from mortals hoping for a miracle, his death. He was surprised to learn of the new queen's arrival, a 17-year-old girl. He noted her age with mild concern. He saw her as a potential pawn in the court's political machinations, a pawn that might ignite the war he dreaded. Siri entered the God King's bedchamber, a vast black room lit only by a crackling hearth. She was forced to undress and kneel naked before him, her fear turning her hair bone white. She waited, hour after agonizing hour, for him to make a move, but he only watched, unblinking, from his shadowed chair. Her defiance and stubbornness, traits that had always been her coping mechanisms in Idris, now seemed useless. Yet, he didn't order her execution. The next morning, she awoke untouched. She found her discarded dress gone, the fire restoked. She was to burn the sheets, a ritual that implied the consummation of the marriage. Siri decided to perpetuate the deception. She spent her days exploring the endless, modular rooms of the palace, each decorated in a different color. She learned that everything she desired could be provided, except freedom. Vivenna entered Telier, finding it an ugly, overwhelming place. Her simple Idrian dress and gray hair made her an anomaly. She had arranged to meet Lemex, her father's chief spy, at a restaurant. There, she was met by two mercenaries, Denth and Tonk Fa. They claimed Lemex was dying and handed her a letter, which included a coded password, confirming their legitimacy. At Lemex's bedside, Vivenna found him feverish and delirious. He was dying, and his biochromatic breath, hundreds of them, flowed irregularly from him. Denth suggested she take the breath, but Vivenna, disgusted by the Hallanderan practice of stealing souls, refused. Yet, Lemex, in a moment of lucidity, forced his breaths upon her with the command, "My life to yours. My breath become yours." Vivenna gasped as the breath flooded her, everything around her becoming vibrant, her hearing achieving perfect pitch. She was now an awakener, possessing enough breath to reach the third heightening. Siri, growing frustrated by her confinement, badgered Treldes to allow her out of the palace. He stubbornly refused, emphasizing her need for isolation and obedience to the God King. Frustrated by the dullness of her days and the God King's enigmatic silence, Siri decided to confront him. That night, she entered his chamber, stripped off her elaborate gown, but left her shift on. She sat on the bed, then performed a humorous charade of passionate lovemaking, complete with moans and bounces, for the benefit of the listening priests. The God King, surprised and confused, revealed his true nature. He was tongueless. The priests had removed it to prevent him from using his vast biochromatic power to awaken. He was a puppet, a figurehead. Siri, filled with pity, resolved to teach him to read. She discovered his hidden children's storybook, his only cherished possession, and began to teach him his letters. Vivenna learned of Lemex's embezzlement and her father's desperate plan to hinder Hallanderan's war efforts. Despite her disgust, she decided to continue Lemex's work, undermining Hallanderan's supplies and sparking unrest. She also resolved to rescue Siri. Denth, surprisingly, agreed to help, though he hinted at a deeper, more dangerous game. He introduced her to Jules, a drab who handled their lifeless soldier, Claude, and provided them with new weapons. Vivenna was unnerved by Claude, a reanimated corpse, but Denth convinced her that lifeless were merely tools. She also learned of Tax, or Vasher, a powerful awakener with a black-hilted sword, who was trailing them. Denth warned her that Vasher would likely try to kill her. Lightsong, spurred by his disturbing dreams, began to actively investigate the murder at Merceestar's palace. He discovered that the priests were lying, fabricating a story about a common thief. He deduced that there were two intruders: a large man with a sword, Vasher, who subdued the guards without killing them, and a second man who killed the only witness. He also suspected secret tunnels beneath the Court of Gods. His own forgotten past, a skilled detective, was resurfacing. Meanwhile, Siri, buoyed by her connection with Suzbran, became more assertive with her priests. She demanded access to books about Hallander and history, but Treldes refused, revealing that the God King wished the books to stay in the library. Siri, now aware of Suzbran's mute condition, understood Trelades' deception and realized the priests were manipulating him. Vivenna's continued efforts to disrupt Hallandren's war preparations led her to the Idrian slums. She was shocked to discover that her own people, the once proud Idrians, had been corrupted by poverty, becoming thugs and prostitutes. Her hatred for Hallandren solidified. She agreed to meet with the Idrian slumlords, men who profited from the despair of their own kind. During the meeting, a city guard raid, secretly orchestrated by Bluefingers to inflame tensions between Hallandren and Idris, erupted. Vivenna was forced to flee, saved only by Claude, the lifeless soldier, who fought with unexpected skill and determination. Shaken, Vivenna decided to learn Awakening, a magic she had once deemed blasphemous, to fight against Hallandren. She returned to the safe house, her mind reeling from the betrayal. She found Parlin dead, brutally tortured. Denth and his team had been deceiving her all along, manipulating her to further their own agenda, to instigate war between Idris and Hallandren. She realized they were collecting her father's agents, killing them after extracting information. Vivenna was devastated, but her anger hardened into a fierce resolve. She demanded Denth teach her Awakening. She now embraced the power, even if it meant blasphemy. That night, a figure appeared on her balcony: Vasher. He had come for her, warning her that she was causing too much trouble. He bound and gagged her, then revealed Nightblood, forcing her to touch it. She recoiled in nausea and heard a voice in her head. "Would you like to kill someone today?" She dropped the sword, retching. Vasher, seeing her reaction, released her, explaining that only pure individuals felt sick when touching Nightblood. He left her bound, but loosely. Vivenna, remembering her kidnapping lessons, managed to free herself, realizing that her new breath powers were linked to her royal blood. She fled into the night, eventually hiding her breath in a shawl to become a drab, hoping to disappear among the city's uncolored masses. Lightsong, disturbed by worsening visions of war, resolved to act. He secured control of his own lifeless army and, with Blushweaver's reluctant cooperation, gained control of Merceestar's and Hopefinder's lifeless as well. He learned of the tunnels beneath the Court of Gods, confirming his prophetic dreams. He realized a hidden force was manipulating the court and aiming to spark a war. He discovered the true purpose of the returned, to use their single divine breath to heal one person once. He also realized that the priests were not simply fulfilling their duty, they were actively trying to provoke a war. Siri, now communicating openly with Suzbran, discovered his profound innocence and his desire to break free from his priests. She learned that the God King was merely a vessel for Peacegiver's vast store of breath, and that the priests replaced him with infant returned to maintain control. The official explanation for past God King's deaths, that they willingly gave their lives for the kingdom, was a lie. Alarmed, Siri realized that a war was imminent, and that the priests intended to kill Suzbran once she bore a child. She confronted Bluefingers, who, under duress, admitted his true allegiance was to the Pawn Call people, who sought to destabilize Hallandren by sparking a war. He planned to sacrifice Siri to further incite the Idrians. Vivenna, now a drab after willingly giving away her breath, found herself begging in the streets, her mind clouded by illness and despair. She was captured by thugs working for Denth, who had been searching for her. She was brought back to the safe house, where she found Parlin's brutally tortured corpse. The betrayal was complete. Denth, now revealing his true, callous nature, explained that he and his team were merely mercenaries hired to instigate the war, and that Vivenna had been a willing pawn. He then demanded her breath, but Vivenna, remembering Jules's security phrase, commanded Claude, the lifeless soldier, to attack Denth. In the ensuing chaos, Vivenna escaped. Lightsong, now understanding his prophetic dreams, knew the war was inevitable. He resolved to take command of all the lifeless armies, preventing them from falling into the wrong hands. He infiltrated Merceestar's palace through the tunnels he'd seen in his dreams, where he discovered Blushweaver tied up, a captive of the Pon Call priests. They had orchestrated the palace coup, seeking to incite war and overthrow the Hallanderan government. He tried to rescue her, but in his inexperience with a sword, was wounded. The priests, to prove their seriousness, slit Blushweaver's throat. Lightsong, horrified, finally understood. He was indeed a god, returned to save his people. He used his divine breath to heal the God King's tongue, restoring his voice and his ability to command. Siri, now imprisoned by Bluefingers, deduced his true intent. He was a Pon Call rebel, orchestrating the war to free his people from Hallanderan's oppression. He planned to use her death as a catalyst for a long, bloody war between Idris and Hallanderan, ensuring the Pon Call's eventual independence. He revealed that he had already sent the lifeless armies marching towards Idris, and that his loyal scribes would kill themselves with poison, leaving no one to stop the lifeless once they were unleashed. She was to be sacrificed on an altar to inflame Idrian hatred. Vivenna, now a drab and weakened by illness, escaped Denth's clutches and sought out Vasher. She found him being tortured by Denth, who revealed his long-held grudge against Vasher for killing his sister, Shashara. Denth, now with Nightblood in hand, intended to kill Vasher, but Vivenna, remembering a command, awakened Tonk-Fa's cloak, causing it to attack Denth. In the ensuing chaos, Vasher was thrown from a window. Vivenna, using a portion of her own breath, gave it to Vasher, enabling him to use his awakened clothing to break his fall and fight his way through the palace. He drew Nightblood, slaughtering the lifeless soldiers with its evil power, but losing most of his breath in the process. Denth, surprisingly alive, confronted a weakened Vasher, ready for a final duel. Suzbran, now able to speak, revealed the truth of the Pon Call coup to Siri. The priests, who had seemed to betray him, had actually been protecting him. They died valiantly fighting the lifeless. Bluefingers, now fully revealed as the true mastermind, explained his plan, to sacrifice Siri, blame the Hallanderan priests, and further incite the Idrians to a war that would destroy both kingdoms, allowing the Pon Call to rise. Meanwhile, Lightsong, witnessing Blushweaver's murder, finally accepted his divinity. He grasped the God King's hand, giving his life, his breath, to heal Suzbran. Simultaneously, in the dungeon, Vasher, severely wounded, battled Denth. Vasher, using a final burst of breath given by Vivenna, poisoned Denth with a sudden, unexpected transfer of breath, then killed him. Suzbran, now with his voice restored, rallied his remaining priests. Vivenna, arriving at the palace, was reunited with Siri. She learned that the lifeless armies were already marching on Idris. Vasher, regaining his returned form, revealed himself to Suzbran as Khalid, the Warbreaker. He had created the Dedenner statues, which were actually lifeless soldiers encased in stone, 300 years ago to end the Many-War. He now gave Suzbran the command phrase for his army, charging him to use it for protection, not attack. The next day, 1,000 stone soldiers marched from Tetelir to intercept the lifeless army. Vivenna, now understanding the complex tapestry of motivations and betrayals, decided to leave Hallanderan with Vasher. She embraced her new identity as an awakener, shedding the constraints of her former life as a princess. She had found her purpose, to learn and explore, to truly understand the world. Vasher, who could alter his appearance and survive on his inherent divine breath without weekly sustenance, revealed that he too was a returned, from before the Many-War, and that his true name was Warbreaker the Peaceful. He was a man who had fought wars, and now sought to end them. Together, they embarked on a new journey, leaving the complexities of Hallanderan and Idris behind, seeking knowledge and a new understanding of their intertwined world.